Lakers have quadrupled down on their veteran commitment.
I like what you did there, family.
They have rumored to be adding Rajon Rondo, and of course they have that veteran future Hall of Famer Carmelo Anthony, Jalen Rose. Do these roster additions, does their offseason make them the best team in the NBA right now?
All I know is this. My former teammate Rob Pelinka running laps around the rest of the league as it relates to putting his roster together.
Really?
Absolutely. I remember coming on this program for days and days and weeks when people were trying to assassinate his character when he got the job. Now all I see is the best team in basketball. You see that? That's the best team in basketball, ladies and gentlemen. They still have LeBron James. They still have Anthony Davis, who will be the difference maker against the Nets or against other teams that like to play small ball. And they added all of those guys. Okay, Malik Monk, 40% three-point shooter. Kendrick Nunn, 40% three-point shooter. Both of those guys are amazing heat check players, okay? That's going to give them their youth. Russell Westbrook averaged
Triple-double.
a triple-double last year, right? Like a triple-double with the Wizards last year. The Lakers, in my opinion, are the clear-cut best team in basketball. If they stay healthy, LeBron James getting another ring this year.
Ooh, I want to see Nets-Lakers finals. I'm done. I need it. I need it. I need it more than anything else in life. I need Nets-Lakers finals so bad. I need it. I need it. I need it.
What can you say to Brooklyn Nets fans who are looking forward to a season where you guys are expected to have a great one?
Healthy James Harden. Scary. Scary hours.
Healthy James Harden, scary. Scary hours. Jalen Rose, what do you think about the scary hours warning from James Harden to the rest of the NBA?
What was that fictional character that used to ride the bike with the extra small hat? That's the first thing that stood out to me right there. We got to get my brother a bigger hat. I agree with James that a full season of their big three is going to be scary hours. However, I'm not going to dismiss one thing, and that's slowing down Giannis. Nobody can stop KD. Check. Nobody can stop from James Harden from flirting with triple doubles. Check, check. Kyrie has the best left hand and the best handle in the league. Check, check, check. But ain't nobody slowing down Giannis. I told you that this year also.
Oh, really?
Who's going to slow down Giannis? I'm still
sorry.
picking the Nets.
I'm sorry.
But it's
Wait,
not a foregone conclusion that they're going to be able to slow down Giannis.
I remember watching a Game 7 between the Nets and Giannis, and I remember that game going into overtime. I remember being about 3 millimeters of Kevin Durant's shoe that kept the Nets from advancing in that series, and Kyrie Irving was not even playing in the game, and James Harden was hobbled. And I love that James Harden said a healthy James Harden is scary hours, because if you remember, I'm old enough to remember a year ago, when offseason James Harden was not in a softball game talking about scary hours. Offseason James Harden was at the club. Offseason James Harden looks like me with his shirt off. Like, offseason James Harden was different last year than this year, and that is going to be another factor that plays into the Nets. And I'm going to say it right now, there's no competition for the Nets in the East. There's none. It's the Nets, and then a big gap, and then everybody else in the East, including the World Championship Bucks. I'm doing it. I'm saying it.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to just tell you this, though. Their rookie played really well in Summer League. He's going to play really well during the season, too. He was 50, 40, 90 in college. And you already see that he's going to be a bucket in the league. I am not mad at you picking the Nets. And I agree, they are my favorite. But I'm just going to be the person that constantly reminds you and or anybody else that there's nobody in the NBA that's slowing down Giannis.
That's fine.
I know that.
That's fine. Let's talk about second options then. Chris Middleton or James Harden? Kyrie Irving or Drew Holiday? Let's talk about that. Fine. No one can stop KD. No one can stop Giannis. What about the second and third options, though?
That's why they're the favorite. I agree with you.
That's why they're the
I agree
favorite.
with you. It's going to be scary hours. But tell me, what fictional character used to wear the small hat?
I don't know what you're talking about. No one wears a small hat. What are you talking about? Like, you can't just be on TV live being like, what fictional character wears a small hat? No one watching at home, including myself.
You got a 36, 37-year-old LeBron James, who you clearly not going to anticipate playing 82 games in a regular season for obvious reasons. You have an Anthony Davis, who's an all-NBA caliber top 10 player, who you're not going to anticipate him playing all 82 games. So that's why you initially bring in Russ. Because despite his age, he's going to be 100 miles and running. And he's going to be giving them some supersized triple-doubles this year. Don't be surprised if he even second in rebounding on their team. And so now you need shooting to go alongside those playmakers, right? And if you notice, each of the guys that they brought in are really good three-point shooters. Carmelo improved his three-point shot as he's progressed in the league. Malik Monk is a young athlete that's going to give you spring and shoot 40. Kendrick Nunn, the same thing he did in Miami. Bazemore and Ellington as well. So you surround those guys, those playmakers with shooting. Now the key, though, is seeding for the Lakers. Let me make sure I say this. You're going to hear the words load management a lot with their team. They got an old squad. You don't get younger by adding Carmelo Anthony, which means they're not going to be a number 1 or 2 seed in the West. So that don't mean they can't win the championship. I still feel like they're the favorite in the West. But what happens is it just lessens your margin of error. You know, somebody has an issue with COVID, someone has an injury, anything can happen, and now all of a sudden you're playing against the Golden State Warriors in the first round or something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate the regular season. But in a 7-game series, if and when they're healthy, favorites to come out of the West.
Ever since LeBron left Miami, you and I have said the same thing. They need to surround him with 3 and D players, and they do have a lot of the 3, but not a lot of those players have the D. Like, when you look at that list of three-point shooters that they have, Malik Monk is never being called a defensive stopper. Kendrick Nunn is not a defensive stopper. Bazemore is not defensive. Anthony Ellington, none of these players have a defensive reputation. Can they score enough to get themselves out of the West?
While it's a volume three-point shooting league, the emphasis is still on offensive players, Jacoby. But when you watch how the Bucks won the championship, it wasn't because they were standing around launching threes. It's still a tall, big man's game. And the key to this is going to be Anthony Davis. And here's the elephant in the room. You can put all of the rosters up there. You can put all of the percentages up there. The Lakers going to need AD to play the 5. That's what they're going to need to do. You can bring in Andre Drummond. You can bring in Dwight Howard. You can bring in Marc Gasol. You can bring in Montrezl Harrell. The elephant in the room is AD got to be willing to play the 5.
Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors signed a 4-year, $215 million
Good Lord,
deal.
that's a lot of money.
Jalen, we always say that happiness is a function of realistic expectations. What are realistic expectations for Steph and these Warriors next year?
How about this team being built through the draft? With Mark Jackson as their head coach, and I'm disappointed he's been whiteballed from the league since he saw them draft Steph and Clay and Draymond. And you know, coincidentally, what helped them build their dynasty, where they can eventually add people like KD, is that Steph had injuries earlier in his career.
Yep.
So based on being an MVP level player, he wasn't making that kind of money initially. And so now you fast forward, he's the only guy in the history of the league that signed 2 $200+ million deals. And so now you look at their squad, right? You get the Splash Brothers and Draymond back. You need one of your young players to become a star.
Yes.
Is it going to be Wiseman? Is it going to be Moody? Is it going to be Kuminga? And then you decide if you're going to keep that player along with a guy like Wiggins, for example, or you're going to move them for an established player. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play these next 4 years. And this year is going to be a proving ground to uplift each of those guys I mentioned value, so then they can decide how they're going to try to go for that next run.
I didn't look at the Warriors last year and say this team is Klay Thompson away from contending for the Western Conference Championship. However, you mentioned it. They've got Wiggins. They've got Wiseman. They've got young players. They've got a mix of assets that would be very desirable for another team that they could kind of cash in to pair with Thompson and Curry. But one thing that I know that you care about is Curry's definitely getting a statue. He's definitely getting a statue. They might as well give him one while he's still playing in the game.
No doubt about it. And this is the beauty of the league, where a guy like Steph can not only turn himself into a great player, but the team reinvests in him, and or vice versa. And now all of a sudden we see a terrific Hall of Fame career happening right in front of us. He was one of my top choices for MVP just this past season.
Well, Jalen, we talked about the Eastern Conference, and we talk about the top teams in the Eastern Conference. The Heat have kind of reloaded to make a run, and also the defending Eastern Conference champions, the Bucks, and the Nets have also added a lot of key players that will be part of their rotation. So who do you have coming out of the Eastern Conference, the Nets or the Bucks?
The Nets today, based on the rosters as I see them, because they have KD, they have Kyrie, they have James Harden. Of course, you're going to need to build out your roster around those guys in order to create some depth and some defense and some rim protection. But if those three guys are healthy, they're my favorite. Now, we're not going to overlook the Bucks by any way, shape, or form, because Giannis figured something out that I appreciate. Sometimes when you're a big guy or you can be dominant in the paint, there's a mental manipulation that happens between fans and media and even other players, because James Harden was kind of teasing him about being a dunker, right? But then when you decide, like Shaq, yeah, I'm going to keep dunking every single time and y'all can't stop him. That's what he did in the playoffs. And so if he keeps that mentality, oh man, the league is in trouble. He'll easily average